All right, so just a second to join here. All right, I think we're ready to go and roll. All right, so welcome everybody to our webinar. As advertised, we will be talking today about how you can leverage your Excel experience today with a controlled shared model backend to an FP&A process. Joining me today, I have Ben Presti, who is our Director of Solutions and Development, and I'm Eric Oldcloss. I am the Senior Sales Engineer here at Paris, and we'll be going through some slides today and then going through a quick demonstration of the solution, and hopefully you guys get some great value out of this. All right, why should you, the listener, be taking a look at this today and continue to watch? Well, one reason, we're going to have a special offer for our viewers of this webinar at the end of today's session. And we've been around for a while, 30 years, over 30 years, and we've get quite a nice customer satisfaction with over 2,500 customers across various different industries. And those customers aren't just in the US. We are a global organization with partners and offices all around the world. So we have the ability to provide best practice solutions across all these different industries across the world. And today we're going to focus a little bit on our PowerAnalytics for financial reporting and analysis, or FP&A. So, as I highlighted before, we do have a lot of AE firms specifically, but we also have a lot of firms across all those different industries. And this is just a small sampling of all those different users that have it in various different places in the world. Everything from smaller firm in South Africa to some big firms here in the US. So we cover the gambit. Now, before we get into the PowerAnalytics, I just want to touch a little bit on Excel, right? And it is great until it's not, right? So why has it been the world's #1 tool? Well, it's pretty much been the #1 tool because it's powerful, it's easy to learn the basics, it's flexible, and pretty much everybody has it on their desktop as part of their standard installation. However, it is just a spreadsheet and not a database or an application. And as you can see from this list of things here, it can be, once you get things in there, there's some challenges. And while Microsoft has made improvements on this to address the Excel issues, it's just simply not enough to scale a consistent, reliable process for spending, to prevent you from spending hours clerking and checking formulas and links and all that. And really what you should be doing is spending your time doing what you were hired to do, which is analysis and reporting and being able to get some value to the business. Now, today we're going to focus on a couple of really key aspects of it. And while we have a multitude of things that we can actually do to help you, I want you to look at this and see that this is a secured Excel environment, meaning you're not going to have to worry about your data just flying anywhere in your organization. It's going to be centralized and controlled. It's also collaborative. So instead of just being something that is shared in a SharePoint or a shared drive or one of those other, cloud infrastructures, this is a true collaboration, not just co-authoring, but you can both look at the same data, but in different views. So let me go back there. The other thing I wanted to do is just to kind of frame some of the conversation today. And one of the things you might find is that some of the self-service beyond the financial statements really means that you're going to be given the end users power. You're going to be giving them power to be able to do the work they need to be able to do in an easy, quick way without having to go through lengthy steps that end up just spending a lot of time doing, quite frankly, just not their job. So what does that look like? A lot of times an organization will end up having to do like a budget So what do? They grab the last year's budget. They end up opening all those different spreadsheets. They end up making all the changes. They end up making all the adjustments. And that's just changing from one year to the next. And then you've got the business organization changes, different departments, different offices, different regions, all of that all has to go into that. Then you're going out and sending it out, you're getting it back, you're sending it out, getting it back, and all the while you're checking those formulas, those sheets. And then of course at the end, somebody in management says, hey, I need to be able to look at it this way. So then you're spending a bunch of time getting that data again so that you can manipulate it and change it into the way that they need to see it. And finally, you're able to finalize reports. All the while, you didn't really do much of the actual analysis part. You ended up spending a lot of times just controlling the process. So what's the solution? PowerAnalytics. It's an end-to-end platform for planning, reporting, and analysis, and you get just straight out of the box, 3-statement financial reporting model. It has management tools to allow you to easily map tools like your accounts and hierarchies of your business. You're able to look at your actuals and your forecast. You're able to blend that data across. You're going to get templates for doing budgets, but you're going to have a single template that you can control that everybody can use, not having to have hundreds of different templates out there that everybody's playing around in. And not to bury it too much, but you also have available an AI assisted forecaster. So you'll be able to use AI in this tool as well. So we all know that's a hot topic. And you'll be able to get all the tools to be able to do all of this on your annual budget, your periodic forecast, and you'll be able to enable your end users to create their own reports in Excel. So we're not losing Excel. We're going to continue to use Excel as our front end, keeping the flexibility, all the experience that you have. And then you're going to get to add on to and go beyond what you've done today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ben Presti. Again, he's our Director of Solutions and Implementations here, and he's going to be going through the product with us today.
All right. Good morning or good evening to those on the other side of the world. Thank you, Eric. I have a little demonstration here that we'll go through. All right, so in PowerAnalytics, there's quite a lot to show, but we're going to focus on 2 primary areas, the reporting and forecasting, and how it relates to what you'll find in PowerAnalytics. And Eric, that process you described with budgeting and the iterations and so forth is much like what we see, the same sort of challenge with reporting, monthly reporting from your ERP, a process of extracting data, sort of cleansing it, merging it, pumping it into your existing reports. So we see this same type of overhead and maintenance in both sides of the world there. So I'm going to start off looking at reporting, and we're going to go through some of the standard reports that come out of PowerAnalytics, as well as how some of those reports get created and how you can use the platform in a self-service capacity. And then we're going to go into more of the planning and forecasting focus involved in building up a forecast using some driver method-based spreading, the AI forecaster, top-down spreading, and how we may be able to snapshot some of those forecast numbers throughout the year. So I'm going to dive right in and we'll focus on the reporting first. Where we are right now is in a standard PowerAnalytics reporting menu. This comes out of the box with the PowerAnalytics program up and running in hours or days, not weeks. We're going to focus on the financial statements area here. And we can see we're in our financial menu and we have our core 3-statement model. I'm going to open up the P&L report here. And the first thing we'll do is just do a little orientation as to what we see here. So we've got our standard P&L. What we can see up on the top here are some filter sections. So I'll start out by double clicking on here, and this really allows me to interface to the whole world of data and all the financial reporting that we may need to do and the variations. I'm going to pick the USA. I'll hit my green checkbox and we'll see the data on my screen is changing. Again, I'll double click on the forecast and what you can see is some of the colors are changing as well. So one of the features within the product here allows you to dynamically format and identify areas, particularly for users in relation to data that's read-only. So this light blue here in the actuals is a closed period, and it's showing as read-only. And over here on the right, you can see more of a tan color where it's identifying areas for user input to drive the users to where they need to be. So before we get too much further in this, I want to show how we got to this report. So this is a nice, pretty looking formatted report. Bear with me here. All right. Of course. So I'm going to bring up the sidebar here. And what is a demonstration without slight hiccup? Let me just open that up again. We'll go into our main menu, come into the P&L. All right. So up on the top here where I had my filters, when I click up there, you'll notice on the right-hand side of my screen pops up the sidebar. So I'm connected to my PowerAnalytics database, my financial data cube, and all of the same parameters that I have up here are available on the right. And this allows a user to kind of orient or slice and dice and make different selections. And there's a few options down on the bottom. What I'm going to do is take this and create a new workbook out of it and sort of start fresh to show you how we got here. So as I do that, we can see it looks much more like a sort of clean Excel slice. Now I can use the sidebar to pick different items, or I can select them up on my filter section here. So I'll go ahead and instead of showing all the months, I'm going to erase that and I'll bring over just my quarters. I want to show kind of a summary quarterly report here. So I've selected those members. And now, for example, on the rows, I have my full P&L there. I'm just going to bring over my gross profit and I'll double click on it to bring out my revenue and my cost side of things. And let's say I want to take a look at my regional a regional summary here. So if I bring up my sidebar, this tracking category 1 represents my regions, and I'll pull that down onto my rows and I'll hit the update button. And what we can see now is it's put my regions here, my income, costs, and gross profit are on the outside. I kind of want to flip that around because what I'd like to see it grouped as is by region and then the gross profit in between. Okay, there we go. That's looking much better. And just in terms of how PowerAnalytics integrates to Excel, it works just the way a user would typically work in Excel. So this section here is a default member in my dimension there. I want to get rid of it, so I'm just going to highlight and say delete. And I have another couple down here that are similar. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. But I'm able to work in Excel the way I'm used to working in Excel. If I want, I can insert a blank row here and here, just for example. And let's say I want to format my header section. And maybe I'll do I want to see my commas down here. So I'll just use a little Excel formatting, get rid of the decimal, wrong way, get rid of the decimal places. Okay. And again, if I wanted to change this back to 2025, my whole report is very dynamic and I'm able to make those changes. So I just wanted to get a little taste for how you go about creating reports and interfacing through the Power Excel. I'm going to bounce back over to this P&L that we were looking at, and we're going to venture into the second area, the planning and forecasting side of things. So as we go through here, we're going to start out with just doing some data capturing for building up a basic forecast, and then we'll go into some of the ways we can kind of accelerate that and bring a few different options to how you might build that up using driver-based AI forecasting and top-down spreading methods.
And
Okay.
he's bringing that up, I just want to remind people, if you have a question, I know we're getting a lot in here, feel free to throw that in the Q&A tab, and we'll get those answered hopefully at the end of this session here.
Okay, so I've selected a forecast for the USA, and the first thing I wanted to demonstrate was just basic data capturing. So PowerAnalytics puts a database behind Excel, and one of the things that we can do is capture not only my data, but multi-user data. So if there are a number of contributors, someone may be planning for each region or each department, they're able to enter and capture data, and that data gets centralized into a database. It's not in their own version of their Excel file that may be floating around that eventually needs to get reconsolidated. This is all live, dynamic, and collaborative. So I've entered a number here. I just highlighted the cells to the right, and I'm going to do a normal Control R to fill right. And we can see that my data has gone into the system. I've got revenue numbers popping up down here. As we talked about earlier, we're doing a blending of actual and forecast. So when I look at my total year over here, I'm getting 1.4 million, which is a blend of my closed actual periods and my forecast. Now, in addition to sort of general data capture like that, there's also some spread methods which allow you to kind of accelerate how you are generating and building up your budget. So I'm going to touch on a couple of these spread methods that we see here. I'll start out with a set method, and I'm going to go for 150,000. And when I do that, this is going to set all of my open planning periods to that number. Now, although this is calculated using our calculation engine, the results that are produced are physical results as if a user had entered them, which means I'm able to go in and override them. So for example, in July, I may say I want it to be 175,000. The next method I want to take a look at here is going to be the LY method. So the LY method is pretty cool. What it does is it takes your data from last year and it lets you use it as a driver and a method here. So I'm going to put in LY, and in the amount, I'm going to put 1.25. So that's going to be the multiplier factor. So it's going to take last year's number times 1.25, and we'll see those numbers are generated out here. Now, the other neat thing about the LY is that it uses the seasonality of your prior year's data. So you can see, for example, there was a spike here in October. When I use the LY method, it brings that into my forecast and kind of represents that seasonality. The next thing that I'd like to show is the AI forecast. So the AI forecast is pretty similar to the LY, except it's leveraging the AI generated forecast. So in a similar way, we've generated a whole data set based on the actuals using an AI forecaster, and I can use this as one of the methods a user can use to build up their budget. So we'll see on this line, it's forecasted out our cost of sales, and this helps to give a whole bunch of variety of ways for planning in different areas. Sometimes you may use a certain method, typically in the expense area or when you're planning your revenue numbers. But on to the new exciting portion of this, the AI forecaster. So here we saw driving one account using the AI forecast. We actually have an entire data set generated using that, and in many ways we may want to use this as a base for starting out a forecast. So up on the top here, you'll see there are a few buttons. These buttons allow you to execute different processes and automation. So for example, this first one allows us to extract data from your ERP. So you're doing your month-end close, you are preparing a set of summary reports, and all of a sudden you find out there were some adjustments and final postings made. You can simply hit this button and it will go out, connect to your ERP, pull your data in, and in a matter of moments, you'll have an updated report with all the latest actuals, and all you have to do is hit F9. So we'll wait for about 5 or 10 more seconds. All right, there we go. And we can see there's not any changed data at the moment, but that's the process you would go through to rebuild and update when needed. So instead of in that crunch time of, oh, I need to go pull this data from my ERP and pump it into my templates and make sure all my formulas are right, you're really just hitting a button. So the AI forecast is what I was referring to. There's a similar automation here. I'm going to go ahead and hit that button. And what this is going to do is basically take all of my AI forecast numbers and pump them into my forecast. So not only when I'm looking at the USA has it generated a forecast, but if I come in here and go to Australia, I can see that I have data generated for Australia as well. I can come up to my all member and I have a full forecast generated out here. Okay, so let me just see, where are we? The last thing I want to do is the top-down spreading. So as we're looking at this, my AI generated out a forecast for me for revenue at 2.1 million. Now, part of the value of the Paris products is the ability for human interaction. So part of that is data capturing. We feel that these different contributors provide a lot of value into this process, and collaboration amongst users and things is a core part of us. So although we've integrated with this AI forecaster, we still want to provide the ability for that human interaction and the unique understanding they have of the business. So as I look at this, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my AI-driven forecast from 2.1 to, let's say, 2.5. And I enter that in there. And what we get are a series of options related to how we want to distribute that number throughout the underlying data. I'm going to say a proportional distribution. And what you'll see is that these numbers behind me will end up adjusting proportionately to reach my target of 2.5 million. Another example I want to show here is, as we look at these expenses, perhaps I think these expenses are a little high and I want to reduce it by 10%. So I'm going to put a -10 into that total, and I'll use the percent change spread method, and I'll say okay. It gives me a couple warnings that some of the data is not editable, and yes, I do want to do this. And then when I hit F9, we can see that it's reduced my expenses there. Okay, so at this point, let's say I've finalized my forecast for the month, and what I want to do is go ahead and freeze it. So I'm going to do what we call a snapshot, and I've got a series of different forecast versions in the database. PowerAnalytics will allow you to basically make unlimited number of versions or scenarios. I've set up a standard sort of 12 scenarios and a couple other general snapshots, but the idea that we do a monthly snapshot. So I'll pick the forecast June because that's the time frame we're in. And what we can see right now is that all of the data is blank. Over here on the right-hand side, I have an option to select the destination forecast. Right now it's on forecast June, which is great. That's where I want it to go. And another one of the automation options up here is to transfer the forecast. So it leverages this destination selected, and I just go ahead and hit that button. And this is now snapshotting all that data, the blended actuals and forecast that was represented in the forecast version. We can see my 2.5 million in revenue over there. And this is a great way to solidify your plans. And as you have all these different forecast snapshots, you're able to see the trend over the year, the accuracy, where things might have been forecasted in January and how they've changed as you move 6 months later. And the nice thing about this is when I come back to my forecast, I may close out June when all of the the actuals have been entered in the system, and we're ready to do final monthly reporting on that. And I would just interact with the same forecast version and pick up next month when I want to put in my updates. So I think that I've reached my allotted time here, and I thank everyone for this. Again, if there's anything people have interest in seeing a bit more of, we've tried to keep this to a time limit here, so there were only so many things we could select, but I want to thank everyone for their time, and I'm going to pass this back to Eric.
Excellent. All right, so again, if you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A here, and we'll go ahead and try and get as many of those answered as possible. Ben, one question that came up was the locations. You got locations in there, but my business has, departments and regions and stuff, and we're just all in the U.S. How does that get worked out?
Okay, so within PowerAnalytics, there are two sort of standard dimensions outside of the chart of accounts and time periods. They can be represented by many different things depending on your particular business. So whether it's departments or projects, regions and locations, the program is designed to handle those. And in the event that there may need to be additional dimensionality, it also is flexible and lends itself to expand those into whatever the business needs.
Excellent. All right, here's another one. How long does it take a typical user to learn this interface?
Well, I think in terms of PowerAnalytics and how it interfaces to your system, it's a very rapid and intuitive type of tool, but quite often our users are quite experienced in the Excel world, so their learning curve is very, very rapid. As you saw, we spend a lot of time working within the Excel interface, and historical Excel experience and skills are directly transferable. So they're off and running.
Excellent. All right, here's a concern I see a lot now. AI, tokens. They can get costly. How do we handle that?
Okay. In what you're seeing within the AI forecaster and so forth, it's not, there's no token related costs in that. It's a self-contained AI generation, and something that is to come is an AI agent that's being developed by Paris, and that may be another story, and we'll have an upcoming webinar focusing just on that.
Excellent. All right, and one more here. We got IT department's really strict. Are we compliant with all the SOC 2 requirements?
Yes, so Paris and our products are SOC 2 compliant, so we can check that box, and all of our cloud-based hosting and so forth is in alignment with that. So we can put their mind at ease, and yeah.
Excellent. Oh, one more real quick here. Spread methods. I do different kinds of spread methods. Can I add in my own custom spread methods?
Most certainly. So what I was showing on the screen there are some default spreads that we have in the product, but we also have the ability to expand those. So another common one that we've entered is a kind of a quarterly spread. So if you put in $1 million, it'll spread it into each quarter appropriately. And if there are other curves, as sometimes they're called, that would be wanted to be used, that we can add that in very easily, and your spreadsheet dynamically updates with those.
Excellent. All right, we want to keep everybody's time that's so valuable, so we'll wrap it up with that and give you the good news. So as a viewer of this webinar, if you schedule a personalized meeting to discuss your specific needs, which I believe Jaco had put into the chat earlier, if you click on that link and schedule a personalized demonstration, and what we'll do for you is, as a viewer, when you sign up for a 1-year subscription, you don't get just the 1 year. you're going to get an additional 3 months for no additional cost. So go ahead and hit that link, book us, or if you want to, you can email myself at eolcloss@paristech.com or Ben at bdpresty@paristech.com. Again, I appreciate everybody joining us today, and I hope everybody got some great value out of this. Any last words, Ben?
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for attending, and Eric, appreciate your help on this and look forward to the next one.
Excellent. Appreciate everybody's
right.
time. See you next time.
Thank you.